Hello everybody, it's Monday, March 2nd today, and this is a little article. I've actually had this thing on the back burner for about a week, and I wanted to talk about it. It's a CNBC article, op-ed piece. It says here, Bernie Sanders is the front runner because of how we raised our kids. I thought it was something interesting that I wanted to share with everybody, kind of share my thoughts on it as well, and see what everybody else here thinks. The key points here, it says, how did an avowed socialist get to the top of the Democratic Party? He is supported by millions of younger voters who have been raised to support Bernie Sanders, even if their parents don't realize it. And this is a piece here from Jake Novak at CNBC, so credit to the author for that. So he writes here, with this convincing victory in Saturday's Nevada caucuses, again this is over a week old, he solidified his status as the frontrunner for the Democratic presidential nomination more than ever. So, how did a lifelong avowed socialist and someone who's never actually won an election as a Democrat get to the top of the party's mountain? And the simple answer is that he's being supported by millions of younger Democratic voters. And those voters have been raised to be Sanders voters, even if their parents don't realize it. Here's how it happened, and he gives his thoughts here. We convinced everyone college was 100% necessary, and then we made college unaffordable. Since the end of World War II, the chorus of educators, politicians, and journalists making it sound like college was essential for career success only became louder and drowned out any counter-argument. At the same time, college tuition costs have exploded, thanks greatly to government programs that produce unintended but predictable consequences. It started mostly in 1978, when more loans and subsidies became available to a greatly expanded number of students. The cost of college tuition has risen by 6 times more than the rate of inflation since the 1970s. Now, millions of American young people are straddled with college loans that look impossible to repay. The total student loan debt in the U.S. now stands at more than $1.6 trillion. Is it any wonder that so many of them are attracted to a candidate who not only promises to forgive student loan debts, is it any wonder so many of them are attracted to a candidate who not only promises to forgive their student debts, but presents their predicament as a result of corporate greed and misplaced government priorities? Luckily for Sanders, young voters supporting him for his college tuition forgiveness promises don't seem to be too interested in his own family history. His wife Jane Sanders was president of the now defunct Burlington College, and she and other administrators were reportedly the subjects of a long-running FBI probe that they misled bank loan officers about the real numbers of donations pledged to the college. The FBI probe of the matter ended in 2018, and Jane Sanders was not charged. But the policies she oversaw, which included pushing for major campus expansions, were indicative of some of the root causes of increased college costs in America. The establishment in both parties ignored young voters. As sacred as our politicians make college education sound, it's nothing compared to the way leaders from both parties talk about programs for older Americans like Social Security and Medicare. None of that is a mystery, as older Americans have always been more likely to vote. Even though voters aged 18 to 29 have been showing increased turnout numbers in recent elections, senior citizens still stand atop the heap. In 2016, 71% of Americans 65 and older voted, compared to just 46% of 18 to 29-year-olds. In the midterms, that gap narrowed to 66 to 36, but that's still a wide gap. All of this focus on older voters and their retirement funds is a nice sentiment, but it's misplaced. Older Americans aren't just doing okay. A 2017 study of age-based wealth in the U.S. shows that a typical household headed by an adult 65 and older has 47 times the net worth of a household headed by a younger American. Yep, Papa and Granny are loaded. Now, helping older people who happen to be poor or on the margins of poverty is something different. But the cultural assumption many of us have about elderly folks needing more financial help in America is pretty much the opposite of the truth. Throw in the Affordable Care Act, which literally and foolishly leaned on younger and healthier Americans to foot the bill for covering older and sicker people, and you see a pattern here. Sanders talks plenty about Social Security, and he's obviously a senior citizen himself, but he usually expands his campaign promises to include younger people, as he did when he took the lead on the Medicare for All promise in 2017. The final point he makes here is that we told them America's house was on fire. for all the policy differences and political minutiae Democrats delve into when criticizing President Trump, the most enduring attacks on Trump from the Democratic establishment remain accusations that Trump is supporting white supremacy and is controlled by Russian President Vladimir Putin. These are over-the-top accusations, and it's hard to accept that even most elected Democrats actually believe them. But pushing that message on America for the last 3+ years comes at a price for both sides. For Democrats, the price is becoming clear. It's made moderate presidential candidates look even less viable than ever before. Think about it. If you really believe the president is a traitor and supporting violent plots against non-white Americans, is this really the time to support mainstream Democrat or Republican candidates? Sanders may be a career politician, but he's never been a mainstream politician. His persona and political brand fits much better into the current Democratic narrative that we're living in desperate times. Establishment Democrats are reaping what they sowed. As a result, it's looking more and more like Sanders has unstoppable momentum going into Super Tuesday primaries and beyond. The big question now is whether the Democratic establishment will try to derail Sanders before or during the Democratic National Convention. But either way, the party would be playing with fire and risking alienating those younger voters forever. Now, I like the points he makes here. This would be my perception of individuals that I would think that are Bernie supporters. We're not talking about the far leftists here, like the communists, socialists, Antifa type individuals. We're not talking about them. They've got their own agenda. Sanders isn't really their type of candidate. He's not the ideal guy. In my opinion, he doesn't support the ideology that those individuals way on the far left support, but he's a means to not an end, but a beginning. He's somebody that they would like to see installed as a first step towards socialism or towards communism, the ultimate goal, whatever you want to call it, anarchy. I feel like these individuals on the far left, they know that Sanders isn't the guy. I mean, you have to know that he's not the guy that's going to get you there, to anarchy, to chaos. But he's a step in the direction that they're hoping for. Now, again, we're not talking about those individuals. We're talking about, again, referencing these college-age individuals, kind of like the typical normie types who really don't have a clue what's going on. Again, individuals who may turn out to be very book smart, but don't really have a clue about how life works and can be easily manipulated by an individual like Bernie Sanders. Because let's face it, that's all he's really doing here, is he's using the promises, a free college, the healthcare kind of thing, to just manipulate the low IQ voter, and that's really his bread and butter. Now, a few other things I feel about these kind of typical Bernie supporters, again, not talking about far leftists, but individuals who have grown up in a world of privilege. Now, privilege in the sense that the United States is the wealthiest country. We have it so great here. We have it so good. People don't understand. They think it's so horrible relative to other countries. But the reality is the way our society is and how open it is, how the freedoms we have, it's far greater than any other country out there. These young people, they just don't have a clue. They haven't lived life. And like Mr. Novak alluded to in the article, these individuals keep getting pumped with this divisive rhetoric just over and over, just nonstop. Keep getting beat over the head with it about how terrible America is, how racist this country is, again, like they were talking about with Trump and white supremacy and all that, just how terrible things are, how the evil white man is after all the little brown ones. And so any individual who keeps getting pumped with that, if they're really young and naive and weak in a way, and ignorant as well, if you keep pumping these people full of this stuff, you're going to be able to flip them and control them. And that's what Bernie's been good at. And that's what the Democrats have been able to do to the young people. They get them so spun up. The media is involved in it as well. Every day just pumping the same old content about how they're the victim. Even though the fact that they're coming from these rich, spoiled households where the parents let them do whatever they want, provide whatever they want for them, they're being told how it's everyone else's fault, how they're not getting everything they want in life being handed to them on a silver platter. And that leads me to something else about the low IQ voter. When you've lived a life of privilege, like we live here almost everybody in this country is living a privileged life. Even our poorest people are doing so much better than most people in other nations. When you're constantly being fed this information about how everything's here for you, how you should get everything handed to you on a silver platter, how you don't need to strive or work hard for anything, and then they're telling you this message, and then they're able to use the press and their political power to say, hey, this guy's over here stopping you, or these ones are over here stopping you. They're the ones holding you back. They're the reason why you don't have everything that you think that you should be expected to have. And like I always say, it's akin to the individual who's running for class president in kindergarten, who can promise free pizza at lunch, who can promise longer recesses. To me, that's all Bernie Sanders is. He's just a huckster promising a bunch of stuff that he can't deliver. But again, the low IQ voter, if you can flip enough of them, eventually it just grows and grows and grows over time to where you can get to a point where you've convinced enough people that they're victims. And the reason for their victimhood is, like he's pointing out, corporate greed or this or that. It's the Republicans, it's the establishment Democrats, any number of things you can point at to feed into the victimology of these weak individuals, then it's going to create a situation where they vote for you. Now, I'd love to hear what you individuals think. Maybe we have some liberal types, maybe we have some libertarians, some righties out there. Those are my thoughts on it. Again, it's just the constant way that you just keep working people. You just keep working them and working them and working them. And the young, like I said, they're so easy to manipulate because they just don't have the life experiences. They just don't know how things work. And I bet that if I was brought up now and I was a millennial being brought up in this time, who knows, I'd probably vote for this idiot too. They'd probably be able to manipulate me the way they do to these young people. And it's just a constant message, just constantly beating them down, saying, hey, you can't succeed because other people are doing well. Rather than trying to encourage people to strive and work harder, the way they're working is just saying, hey, you're not achieving because these other people are, when it's not the reality. The pie of wealth is infinite, baby. I don't know how much more clear I can be on that. The pie is infinite. Because somebody else got a slice, that doesn't mean I can't get my slice. So instead of telling people that, we're constantly making them victims. And I think that just creates a weak society. But I do agree that it starts in the household. With all these things he pointed out, I think he really just forgets to talk about within the walls of their nuclear family, how parents haven't been as responsible with raising their children to strive and work harder, as opposed to just being able to collect from mom and dad and then expect in adulthood to then just be able to collect from the government. Again, that's what I think on the video. Kind of went on a little long with that, but love to hear what you think on whatever side of the debate you're on. What do you think of his points? What do you think of what I said? Agree or disagree? As I always say, bring on the comments. I love reading them. That's the video. As I said, it kind of went on a little rant there. Yeah, like I said, it's just unfortunate that things have worked out this way, where people are put into a victim mode rather than striving to be great. And I wish that politicians and parents and everybody, teachers, could push these people to be great instead of just expecting that life's going to be handed to you. Struggles, we strive, we overcome stuff. Perseverance is what it's all about. That's how I got to where I am in life, and hopefully you all have done the same. Fight through it all. Definitely hoping for the best for everybody out there. And if you're having some struggles, like I say, just keep fighting. Don't think that you're a victim. Don't let anybody keep you down. That's the video, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. All the best.